Hi all. So this is my second attempt at the part 2 of lecture 13 on division. So you've already seen multiplication, chips, and number lines. You've already seen division using chips. So now we're going to tackle division using number lines. So we are going to use a similar strategy here that we did with chips. And that is that the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and change this problem from division to multiplication. Then we're going to use what we know about number lines and multiplication to set ourselves up for success here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and switch this to multiplication. So that means this will become 3 times some number gives me 6. Okay. So the answer to the division problem is what goes in the box, right? And from multiplication, when we use number lines here, this first number, so the two numbers for multiplication, because your factors can take on either role, one of them represented the jump size, which we're going to use here for the first one. So our 3 is going to represent our jump size. Just because it's a little bit easier to fix your jump size and then determine how many jumps you'll take later. And we're going to use this 3 as where we look. So where to look, right? And this 6 over here, talking about things that we know, is the answer to the multiplication problem. And when we're doing multiplication using a number line, the answer to the multiplication is where we land. And I'm going to call that our target. So that's our target landing place, okay? And then the answer to our division problem is actually going to be this missing factor right here. And in multiplication, if the first number represented our jump size and where to look, then this second number or second factor represents our number of jumps and the direction, either forwards or backwards. And of course, forwards would be positive and backwards would be negative. Okay, so that's how we're going to set this up. So we're going to use everything that we know about multiplication. So to start ourselves off here, we're going to always I'm going to start down here. Always for multiplication, we are going to start at 0. And then we know that we have a jump size is 3. We also know we're going to look at wherever that number 3 is, whether it's positive or negative. So the 3 is positive, so I'm going to look at the positives. And that's because of the positive 3. Okay. And my target is positive 6. Okay. So now if I set this up on my number line, I'm starting at 0, so I'm going to use my green here. Green for go and red for stop. So my target is 6. I want to land on 6 over here. So I'm here's my target spot. So I'm going to start at green and end at red, no matter what I do. Okay. Then I'm going to look at the positives. So that means my arrow points this direction. And I'm going to use my jump size to get there. So I'm going from the green spot to the red spot using jumps of size 3. So here's a jump of size 3, and here's another jump of size 3. Okay. And remember that our answer to the division is the number of jumps and whether I went forwards and backwards or backwards. So this is 2 jumps. And in this case, I'm going the same direction as my arrow. My arrow goes from green to red. So that means I'm going forwards, going with the arrow. And so that means that my answer here is going to be positive because it's forward, 2 because we go 2 jumps. Okay, so my answer is positive 2. Again, I put the positive sign in there for emphasis. You don't need it. Okay. Now let's see how this plays out with a couple more examples. So B, we have 8 divided by negative 4. So again, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and convert this. So this is going to be negative 4 times some box is going to give me positive 8. So what this means is that we're going to start at 0 because we're multiplying. So we always start at 0 when we're multiplying. My target is the answer to the multiplication problem. So that's the 8. I'm going to look, in this case, at the negatives. Why? Because the 4 is negative, right? That -4 tells me to look at the negatives. And my jump size is going to be 4 as well, because that's the value of that first factor here. So let's go ahead and set that up on our number line. So I'm starting at 0, so green on 0. I have to land on 8. My target number is 8, so I'm headed right here for 8. Then my arrow, I'm looking at the negatives, so my arrow goes towards the negatives. Okay, and my jump size is 4, and that means I'm going from green to red in jumps of size 4. So here's a jump of size 4. I'm not quite there yet. Let's go another one, and there I am. So I went 2 jumps. But this time I did not go with the arrow. I went opposite the arrow, and when you go opposite the arrow, that's backwards. And so my answer is -2 because I'm moving 2 jumps, but this time I'm moving backwards. Okay. Next, we have -10 divided by -2. So this becomes -2 times some box is -10. That means I'm going to start at 0. I am going to look at the negatives because -2. We are going to have a jump size of 2. And my target is -10. Okay, and that's everything that's coming from here. That first number tells you where to look and what your jump size is. The number it's equal to, the answer to the multiplication problem, is your target. So if I set that up here, again, your green dot always starts at 0. Your red dot here goes on the -10. That's my target. I'm headed for that red one. My black arrow, my arrow is going in the direction of the negatives. So I'm going to look at the negatives. And my jump size is size 2. So I'm going to go in jumps of size 2 from green to red. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I went 5 jumps. And then did I go with my black arrow or against it? Now this is my black arrow right here. And I went the same direction. My arrow points from green to red. So I went forwards. I went with my arrow. So it's 5 jumps forwards. And that means that my answer is +5. Okay, because I moved 5 forwards. Again, you can drop the positive and just write 5. And our last one, we have -8 divided by 2. So that means, 2 times some box has to give me -8. So we're going to start at 0. We are going to look at the positives because the 2 is positive. We are going to have a jump size of 2. And our target here is going to be -8. Okay, so let's go ahead and set up our number line. I am putting my green dot on the 0. My red dot goes on the target, and that's -8. And then my arrow goes, I'm looking at the positive, so my arrow goes this way. And then my jumps is of size 2. So I'm going to go from green to red in jumps of size 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I went 4 jumps. This time my arrow is going towards positives and I went towards the negatives. So that's backwards, away from my arrow. And that means that my answer here is -4 because we went backwards 4 jumps. Okay, so with division, you're always rewriting as multiplication. That answer to the multiplication, which is actually the dividend of your division problem, is your target. You're always starting from 0 because with multiplication, we're always starting from 0. And then your divisor, or that factor in the multiplication problem, is your jump size, the value, and the direction that you look. Okay, and then your answer is the number of jumps you take to go from green to red from start to end, and whether you went with the arrow or opposite the arrow.